The year 2026 isn't just another date on the calendar, it's a financial fault line. A pivotal moment where the very foundations of global finance will either be irrevocably reshaped by a digital revolution or cement their old-world dominance, leaving a trail of economic casualties in their wake. Before we dive into the hidden forces at play, if you find this information critical to your financial future, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more urgent insights, and comment "Digital Divide" below if you believe the traditional financial system is on the brink of a massive transformation. What nobody is telling you is that the battle lines are already drawn, not on a battlefield, but in the cold, hard code of decentralized networks versus the entrenched centralized power of Wall Street. And the outcome will directly affect every single dollar, every single investment, and every single piece of wealth you possess. This isn't about a speculative asset. This is about the future of money itself, a future where the rules are being rewritten, and the old guard is fighting for its very survival against an unstoppable, mathematical force. For decades, the financial world has operated on a simple, unquestioned premise. Banks, governments, and large institutions are the sole arbiters of value, the gatekeepers of wealth, and the trusted intermediaries for every transaction. They print the money, they control the ledgers, they set the rules, and they profit immensely from this centralized control. But then came Bitcoin, a digital ghost in the machine, born from the ashes of the 2008 financial crisis, a direct response to the systemic failures and unchecked power of these very institutions. It promised a world without intermediaries, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system where trust was replaced by cryptographic proof and control was distributed across a global network rather than concentrated in a few powerful hands. For years, Wall Street dismissed it as a fringe experiment, a plaything for tech geeks and criminals, a volatile asset too small to matter. They called it a bubble, a Ponzi scheme, a rat poison squared. But while they scoffed, Bitcoin quietly built its infrastructure, attracted millions of users, and grew from a few cents to tens of thousands of dollars, creating an entirely new asset class and a multi-trillion-dollar ecosystem. Now, as we hurtle towards 2026, the dismissive laughter has turned into a nervous cough. The very institutions that once scorned Bitcoin are now scrambling to understand it, to integrate it, or failing that, to control it. Because the hidden math behind Bitcoin's design, its scarcity, its immutability, and its decentralized nature presents an existential threat to their business model. The traditional financial system, built on fractional reserve banking and endless money printing, relies on a constant expansion of debt and a gradual erosion of purchasing power through inflation. Bitcoin, with its fixed supply of 21 million coins, offers an alternative, a deflationary hard money asset that cannot be manipulated by central banks or governments. This fundamental difference is the core of the conflict. If Bitcoin succeeds in becoming a widely adopted store of value, a global reserve asset, or even a significant medium of exchange, it fundamentally undermines the power of central banks to control monetary policy and the ability of governments to inflate away their debts. This isn't just a technological shift. It's a paradigm shift that threatens to dismantle the existing power structures that have governed global finance for centuries. The year 2026 is critical because it marks the full implementation of several key regulatory frameworks and the culmination of technological advancements that will force this confrontation into the open. On one side, you have the traditional financial system, burdened by unprecedented levels of debt, facing an inflationary spiral, and grappling with the looming threat of bail-ins, where your deposits can be converted into bank equity to save failing institutions. We've discussed the hidden math of government debt and the fragility of the banking system in previous analyses, and all those factors converge around this timeline. The old system is showing deep structural cracks, and its reliance on ever-increasing debt and centralized control makes it inherently vulnerable to a loss of public trust. On the other side, Bitcoin and the broader crypto ecosystem are maturing. Regulatory clarity, though slow, is emerging, Institutional adoption is growing, with major players like BlackRock and Fidelity launching Bitcoin ETFs, legitimizing the asset in the eyes of mainstream investors. The technology itself is evolving, with scaling solutions and improved user interfaces making it more accessible to a wider audience. The narrative is shifting from scam to digital gold to future of finance. But this isn't a simple David versus Goliath story where one side inevitably wins. The established powers of Wall Street and governments are not going to cede control without a fight. They are developing their own digital currencies, central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, which are essentially digitized versions of fiat money, designed to give central banks even greater control over monetary policy, track every transaction, and potentially implement programmable money that could expire or be restricted in its use. This is the ultimate weapon in their arsenal to counter the threat of decentralized cryptocurrencies. If CBDCs are widely adopted, they could effectively cut off the on-ramps and off-ramps for Bitcoin, making it harder for ordinary citizens to convert fiat into crypto and vice versa. They could create a two-tiered financial system, where traditional digital money is controlled and surveilled, while decentralized crypto operates in a more restricted, perhaps even criminalized parallel economy. This is the left for dead scenario for Bitcoin. Not a technical failure, but a regulatory and political strangulation. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Bitcoin flips Wall Street, it means a fundamental re-evaluation of what constitutes sound money, a shift towards a more transparent and permissionless financial system, and a significant reduction in the power of centralized authorities to manipulate the economy. It means individuals regaining sovereignty over their wealth, free from the whims of politicians and central bankers. But if Bitcoin is left for dead, it means the triumph of centralized control, the widespread implementation of CBDCs, and a future where every financial transaction is monitored, controlled, and potentially censored by the state. It means a world where your money is not truly yours, but a digital entry in a ledger controlled by an authority that can turn it off at will. The psychological suspense here is immense. Are we heading towards financial liberation or unprecedented financial surveillance? The answer, I promise you, will be revealed by 2026. The reason 2026 is so critical is not just about the technical or regulatory milestones. It's about the accelerating loss of trust in the traditional system. People are increasingly aware of inflation eroding their savings, of governments accumulating unsustainable debt, and of banks being deemed too big to fail, only to be bailed out with taxpayer money, or worse, through depositor bail-ins. This erosion of trust is the fertile ground upon which Bitcoin thrives. It offers an escape hatch, a mathematically verifiable alternative to a system that many perceive as rigged. The more the traditional system falters, the more attractive Bitcoin becomes. And the more attractive Bitcoin becomes, the more aggressively the traditional system will try to suppress it. This creates a feedback loop, a tension that is building to a crescendo. The question isn't if something will break, but what will break, and how that breakage will redefine our financial reality. The inevitability of this confrontation is rooted in the irreconcilable differences between these two monetary philosophies. One is built on trust in institutions, the other on trust in mathematics. One is inflationary, the other deflationary. One is centralized, the other decentralized. They cannot coexist indefinitely without one fundamentally altering the other. The battle for the future of money is not just theoretical. It's happening now. And 2026 is the year it reaches its climax. The implications for your personal wealth, your freedom, and the global economic order are profound. And understanding this hidden math is your first step towards navigating the coming storm. The true depth of this impending clash, the very mechanics of how Bitcoin could either dismantle or be dismantled by Wall Street, lies in understanding the intricate dance between technological innovation, regulatory capture, and the relentless pursuit of control over the global monetary supply. As we delve deeper into these mechanisms, comment decentralize below if you believe true financial freedom can only exist outside of centralized control. This isn't just about competing financial products. It's about two fundamentally opposing philosophies of money and power, hurtling towards an unavoidable collision in 2026. A collision that will reshape the economic landscape for generations to come. The traditional financial system, often referred to as TradFi, operates on a principle of managed scarcity and controlled inflation. Central banks like the Federal Reserve have the sole authority to create money, influencing its supply and value through interest rates and quantitative easing. This power allows governments to fund their operations, manage economic cycles, or attempt to, and crucially, inflate away their debts over time. It's a system built on trust in institutions, trust that these entities will act responsibly, trust that they will maintain the purchasing power of the currency, and trust that they will always prioritize the stability of the system above all else. But that trust is eroding, and the math behind it is becoming increasingly unsustainable. The debt crisis we've previously discussed, the trillion-dollar interest payments, the ballooning deficits, these are not isolated problems. They are symptoms of a system that has reached its limits, a system that requires ever-increasing amounts of new money to stay afloat. This constant creation of new money, while necessary to prevent immediate collapse, inevitably leads to inflation, a stealth tax that silently erodes the wealth of savers and fixed-income earners. Wall Street, the engine of TradFi, thrives in this environment. They profit from the issuance of debt, the trading of financial instruments, and the intermediation of every single transaction. Their business model is inextricably linked to the centralized control of money and the ability to leverage that control for profit. They are the beneficiaries of the current system, and they have every incentive to maintain it, even if it means suppressing any viable alternative. Enter Bitcoin. It's not just a digital currency. It's a protocol, a decentralized network that operates without a central authority. Its supply is fixed at 21 million coins, a mathematical certainty that cannot be altered by any government or central bank. This inherent scarcity is its most revolutionary feature, directly challenging the inflationary nature of fiat currencies. Bitcoin offers a truly hard money alternative, a store of value that cannot be debased by political whims or economic necessity. This is why Wall Street initially dismissed it. It didn't fit their model. There was no central entity to control, no interest rate to manipulate, no leverage to apply in the traditional sense. It was an alien concept, a threat to their very existence. But as Bitcoin grew, as its market capitalization swelled into the trillions, Wall Street realized they could no longer ignore it. Their strategy shifted from dismissal to a multi-pronged approach: co-optation, regulation, and, if necessary, outright suppression. The co-optation strategy is evident in the rise of Bitcoin ETFs. Institutions like BlackRock, once skeptical, are now offering products that allow traditional investors to gain exposure to Bitcoin without actually holding the underlying asset. On the surface, this seems like adoption, a legitimization of Bitcoin. But beneath the surface, it's a subtle attempt to bring Bitcoin into the TradFi fold, to financialize it, to wrap it in layers of intermediation and control. When you buy a Bitcoin ETF, you don't own Bitcoin. You own a share in a fund that owns Bitcoin. This reintroduces the very intermediaries Bitcoin was designed to circumvent. It allows Wall Street to profit from Bitcoin's popularity while maintaining control over the access points and potentially influencing its future development through regulatory pressure. This is a critical distinction, and one that most mainstream investors fail to grasp. They believe they are buying Bitcoin, but they are often buying a derivative, a financial product that is still subject to the rules and risks of the traditional system. The regulatory strategy is even more insidious. Governments and central banks, recognizing the threat Bitcoin poses to their monetary sovereignty, are actively working to regulate the crypto space. While some regulation is necessary to protect consumers and prevent illicit activities, much of it is designed to create barriers to entry, increase compliance costs, and ultimately stifle innovation in the decentralized space. The push for KYC, Know Your Customer, and AML, anti-money laundering regulations on crypto exchanges, while ostensibly for security, also serves to link every Bitcoin transaction back to a real-world identity, eroding the privacy that is a core tenet of decentralized finance. Furthermore, the development of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, is the ultimate regulatory weapon. CBDCs are not cryptocurrencies in the spirit of Bitcoin. They are centralized digital fiat money, controlled entirely by the central bank. They offer the promise of instant payments and greater efficiency, but at the cost of unprecedented surveillance and control. Imagine a world where your money can be programmed to expire, or only be spent on certain goods and services, or even frozen if you engage in activities deemed undesirable by the state. This isn't a conspiracy theory. These are features openly discussed by central bankers. The rollout of CBDCs, which is accelerating globally with many countries targeting 2026-2028 for pilot programs and full implementation, represents a direct counteroffensive against the freedom offered by Bitcoin. It's a race to define the future of digital money, and the stakes are your financial autonomy. The Left for Dead scenario for Bitcoin isn't necessarily a technical failure or a complete collapse of the network. It's a scenario where Bitcoin is marginalized, pushed to the fringes of the financial system, made difficult to access, and effectively rendered irrelevant for the vast majority of the population. This could happen through a combination of aggressive regulation, the widespread adoption of CBDCs, and a coordinated media campaign to demonize decentralized cryptocurrencies. Wall Street, with its immense lobbying power and influence over financial media, is perfectly positioned to execute such a strategy. They can frame Bitcoin as a tool for criminals, a threat to national security, or an environmental disaster, creating enough public fear and distrust to justify draconian regulations. The goal isn't to destroy Bitcoin entirely, but to contain it, to prevent it from becoming a mainstream alternative that could truly challenge their power. However, the Flips Wall Street scenario is equally plausible, driven by the inherent weaknesses of the traditional system and Bitcoin's growing resilience. The accelerating debt crisis, the persistent inflation, and the increasing frequency of financial crises are pushing more and more people to seek alternatives. As trust in institutions erodes, the appeal of a mathematically verifiable, censorship-resistant money grows. Bitcoin's network effects are powerful. The more people use it, the more valuable and secure it becomes. Its global, permissionless nature makes it incredibly difficult to shut down. Even if individual governments try to ban it, the network will continue to operate, finding new ways to connect users. The flipping doesn't necessarily mean Bitcoin replaces every aspect of Wall Street overnight. It means Bitcoin becomes a dominant global reserve asset, a primary store of value for individuals and institutions, and a parallel financial system that offers a genuine alternative to the centralized model. It means Wall Street is forced to adapt to Bitcoin, rather than Bitcoin adapting to Wall Street. It means the power dynamic shifts, and the rules of money are no longer solely dictated by the traditional financial elite. The year 2026 is the convergence point for these forces. The full implementation of Basel III will put immense pressure on traditional banks, forcing them to reevaluate their balance sheets and potentially exposing their vulnerabilities. This coincides with Bitcoin's next halving cycle, which historically has been a catalyst for significant price appreciation and increased public awareness. More importantly, it's the period when many central banks aim to have their CBDC framework solidified, setting the stage for a direct competition between centralized digital money and decentralized digital money. The outcome of this struggle will not be decided by a single event, but by a series of escalating confrontations, regulatory battles, technological arms races, and, ultimately, the choices made by billions of individuals around the world. Will they choose the path of centralized control and surveillance, or the path of financial sovereignty and freedom? The answer to that question will determine whether Bitcoin flips Wall Street or is left for dead. The psychological implications are profound. The fear of missing out, FOMO, on Bitcoin's potential gains versus the fear of regulatory crackdown. The promise of financial liberation versus the comfort of the familiar, albeit flawed, traditional system. This isn't just a financial decision, it's a philosophical one with far-reaching consequences for the future of society. The inevitability of this showdown is not a matter of if, but when, and 2026 is the year the clock runs out on ambiguity. The moment of truth is fast approaching, a convergence of technological destiny and economic inevitability that will force every individual to confront the fundamental question of financial control. And the choices made in the next few months will echo through generations. As we unveil the final implications of this monumental shift, comment survival strategy below if you are actively preparing for the financial changes coming in 2026 and beyond. This isn't just a theoretical debate for economists or tech enthusiasts. This is a direct personal challenge to your financial autonomy, your privacy, and your ability to secure your future in a world where the very definition of money is being violently contested. The window for passive observation is closing rapidly, and the time for decisive action is now. Because 2026 is not a distant threat, but an imminent reality that demands your immediate attention and strategic preparation. The ultimate impact of whether Bitcoin flips Wall Street or is left for dead extends far beyond mere investment returns. It touches the very fabric of society, dictating the level of individual freedom, the scope of government power, and the distribution of wealth in the digital age. If Wall Street, backed by the immense power of nation-states and central banks, succeeds in marginalizing Bitcoin and pushing through its vision of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, the consequences for the average person will be profound and, frankly, terrifying. Imagine a world where every single transaction you make, every purchase, every transfer, is not only recorded, but also monitored in real time by the government. Your spending habits, your political donations, your dietary choices, all become data points in a centralized ledger, accessible to authorities. This isn't just about privacy, it's about control. With programmable CBDCs, your money could be given an expiration date, forcing you to spend it within a certain time frame to stimulate the economy, or it could be restricted to specific types of purchases, preventing you from buying certain goods or services deemed undesirable. Dissent could be financially deplatformed, with accounts frozen or funds restricted for those who express views contrary to the state. This is the ultimate centralization of power, a digital panopticon, where financial freedom is an illusion, and every individual is a node in a tightly controlled economic network. This scenario, where Bitcoin is effectively left for dead by being regulated into irrelevance or overshadowed by state-controlled digital currencies, represents a future of unprecedented financial surveillance and diminished individual liberty. It's a future where the promise of the internet for decentralization and empowerment is inverted, becoming a tool for total control. However, the alternative, where Bitcoin flips Wall Street, offers a dramatically different vision, one of financial liberation and renewed individual sovereignty. If Bitcoin continues its trajectory of adoption, if its network effects strengthen, and if it proves its resilience against regulatory attacks, it could become the ultimate escape hatch from the encroaching control of the traditional system. In this scenario, Bitcoin acts as a neutral, permissionless, and censorship-resistant layer for global value transfer and storage. It allows individuals to truly own their wealth, free from the risk of confiscation, inflation, or arbitrary restrictions. It provides a parallel financial system that operates on mathematical proof rather than trust in fallible institutions. This doesn't mean the end of banks or traditional finance, but it means they would be forced to compete on a level playing field, offering genuine value and service rather than relying on their monopolistic control over money. It would force them to innovate, to become more efficient, and to respect the financial autonomy of their customers. The flipping would signify a fundamental shift in power dynamics, where individuals, armed with sound, decentralized money, have a genuine alternative to the centralized system, forcing the latter to adapt or face obsolescence. This future is one where financial privacy is preserved, where wealth cannot be silently eroded by inflation, and where economic participation is open to anyone with an internet connection, regardless of their geographical location or political affiliation. The pressure building towards 2026 is immense, and it's driven by a confluence of factors that make this confrontation unavoidable. The global debt crisis, the persistent inflation, the fragility of the banking system, and the increasing geopolitical instability are all pushing people to seek alternatives to the existing financial order. Simultaneously, the technological maturity of Bitcoin and the broader crypto ecosystem, coupled with growing institutional interest and regulatory clarity, even if imperfect, is making it a more viable and accessible option than ever before. The stage is set for a showdown, and the outcome will hinge on which narrative gains dominance: the narrative of state-controlled digital convenience and security, or the narrative of decentralized freedom and sovereignty. The mainstream media, heavily influenced by traditional financial interests, will undoubtedly push the former, demonizing Bitcoin and promoting CBDCs as the inevitable future. But the truth, the hidden math, and the growing disillusionment with the current system are powerful counter-narratives that cannot be easily suppressed. So, what does this mean for you personally? This isn't about fear-mongering. It's about realistic preparation. The time for complacency is over. You cannot afford to simply trust that the system will protect your wealth, because the system is designed to protect itself, often at your expense. The first step is education. Understand the difference between Bitcoin and CBDCs. Understand the risks of the traditional banking system, especially the bail-in mechanisms that could convert your deposits into worthless equity. Understand the power of true scarcity versus inflationary fiat. The second step is diversification, but not in the traditional sense. Diversify away from the risks of the centralized system. This means considering tangible assets that cannot be easily confiscated or inflated away: physical gold and silver, productive real estate, not speculative commercial property, and yes, Bitcoin held in self-custody where you control the private keys, not on an exchange or in an ETF. This is crucial. If you don't hold your own keys, you don't truly own your Bitcoin. The third step is to reduce your reliance on the traditional banking system. Explore alternative payment methods. Consider holding a portion of your emergency funds outside of bank accounts, and understand the implications of capital controls that could freeze your access to funds in a crisis. The warning signs are flashing red. The year 2026 is not just a date, it's a deadline. It's the point at which the structural weaknesses of the old system will become undeniable, and the alternative offered by Bitcoin will either be embraced by the masses or aggressively suppressed by the powers that be. The choice is being made now, not by presidents or central bankers alone, but by every individual who decides where to place their trust, where to store their value, and how to participate in the evolving financial landscape. Your financial future, your freedom, and your ability to navigate the coming storm depend on your understanding of this hidden math and your willingness to act decisively. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for the mainstream media to tell you it's safe. By then, the window of opportunity will have closed, and the rules will have been irrevocably changed, potentially leaving you on the wrong side of the digital divide. The time to prepare, to learn, and to secure your financial sovereignty is now, before 2026 makes the choice for you.